What's up? What's up, Ian? Good evening, buddy.
We got to fix that, man, because I just get into the music and it's like stop. Like, yo, what is going on, man?
Yeah, man, we're real estate investors, not videographers, but it's all good. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to REI Madness. Hopefully, everyone's as excited as Ian and I are to chat with Team Rental Properties tonight. I know the term rentals is a little bit vague, but we'll be diving into some single-family rentals, some multifamily rentals, maybe even a little commercial stuff and Airbnb stuff if we got some time and there's enough interest. So it's always nice to hear about just different investors' rental portfolios and how they manage them individually, a little bit different from others, or everyone's unique in their likings. Everyone's rental property is just different. So it's going to be interesting to hear. I'm sure we'll get to know exactly how these guys got started in the business, and maybe even go into some details about their current rental property portfolios and how they're performing today. So I think it's really going to be a hot topic for most of our viewers tonight. I'm sure everyone will get some really good key takeaways and, hopefully some stuff that we can all immediately implement in our business. So anyways, we're super thankful to have Aaron, Vadim, and Shaun to be here with us tonight. And just in 1 second, we will go and introduce these guys.
Yeah, man, no, it's definitely exciting. It's a great topic. Obviously, this topic is really close to me and going to resonate. So super excited for it. But before we do bring the guys in, as you guys know, we are raising money for the Metro Burn Foundation. Tonight's special because Aaron's a firefighter for DC, as I'm a firefighter for Baltimore. So he understands the importance of donating to this charity because they do help us. We had some big sponsors from Studio A Staging, the Breeding Group, and the Storage Rebellion. You guys can find out more information about that over on reimadness.com. There's the slide. The three guys in the middle are our biggest contributors. We appreciate that. If you guys get value from tonight or you get value from any of this during this whole time, feel free to jump over there. There's a link to make a donation, but it is a completely free event. Don't feel obligated. And we're going to go for a while tonight. This is a interactive. This is for you as much as it is for us. If you guys have questions, feel free to comment. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and streaming in several other spots where we have this link embedded. So if you have questions, feel free to post them and we'll get to them as we go through, as we did earlier today with Team New Construction. And we will go as long as these guys are willing to stay awake. So let's bring in the boys.
Let's do it. We'll rearrange you guys a little bit. So we're all down here. You guys are up here. So we got Aaron on the left, Vadim, and then Shaun. What's up, guys?
What's up, guys?
Hey.
How's everyone doing?
Not bad. So why don't we do this? Why don't we kick it off? If you guys can just do a quick intro about yourselves. Aaron, you go first, and we'll go from left to right.
All right. I'm just turned 40 last.
Nice job. Pick the guy with the bad internet connection.
All right, Vadim, you're up, and then we'll jump back to Aaron.
All right, no problem. So yeah, guys, my name is Vadim. I've been in real estate for going on about 10 years now. Started doing a lot of flips, slowly got into rental properties, have been getting more and more into it. I'm at just about 50 rental units now, spread between residential, commercial, multifamily. I had some short-term rentals for a long time as well. And yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Nice. Shaun, Aaron's going in and out. So we'll make the best of this.
All right, guys. Hey, Shaun Magner. I live in Baltimore with my wife, Erica. We run our business primarily a single-family affordable housing rental model, some subsidized, some market rent tenants, but all in and around the 695 Baltimore, Maryland Metro Beltway. I've been doing this since about 2013. We do it full-time. And as I mentioned, primarily single-family rentals, but we also do some wholesaling, fix and flip, and that was short-term rental.
Magner, he's stealing your thunder over there.
That's it, dude. He's in and out, man. What are you doing?
You good, Aaron? Everything okay?
Sorry, guys. I switched from phone to computer. Now I'm on the computer.
All right. Yeah, do a little quick intro, and we'll keep it moving.
All right. So I'm 40. I've been investing for about 16, 17 years. I bought my first property in College Park when I was in my early 20s. I got a small portfolio, probably about a dozen properties right now. I've done everything from flips to buy and holds to tax liens and some multifamily, single family houses on one property. I got a little bit of everything on my belt. Jason likes to make fun of me because I go after the most random stuff like castles, lighthouses, and churches. So my niche is a little bit different than most people. I try to make my own niche versus going after what everybody else does.
Nice. All right, so let's start off with the first question. If you've guys been tuning in, we've been asking the same first question to a lot of our guests because we're all curious. What do you believe, kind of what's your game plan for 2021? Obviously, we don't exactly know. We don't exactly know what's going to happen, but what's your game plan? Are you guys continuing to buy income-producing properties? Are you kind of a little bit more conservative right now? Like, where do you think the market's going to go kind of into the spring, maybe into the summer, and even into later in 2021? Maybe, Aaron, you want to start off, and then we'll kind of just go through it.
So my game plan hasn't changed much. I was listening to the guys earlier who were building houses. I think a lot of investors are still going to hit the market hard right now just because rates are so low. As long as you can find deals and the numbers work, guys are going to keep pushing forward. I know I am. I'm going to try to do a couple 1031 moves this year where I take the money and profit from one sale and push it into another property. I've got one specific one in mind. I don't see a whole lot of change for investors. There's not a whole lot on the market, so you either have to make your own niche or find wholesalers to work with or find your own off-market deals.
Yeah, it's that there's been a lot of that in the marketplace. A lot of guys talking about 1031s. Things are at the top of the cycle, being able to leverage. I know it's a hot button item. We're working on getting a 1031 interview later this month because it is a hot button item with the current president, and there is some things at risk. So that is interesting. Vadim, what are you seeing? I know you just went through a big refinance. Yeah, what's your plans for 2021?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, I just went like you said, doing a big refinance. I've got a lot of other properties that I'm trying to refinance right now. The rates are so low, so I want to take advantage of it while they are low and be able to have those funds ready just to acquire more properties. I put 2 under contract this month, one last month and one this month. So I am actively buying and just looking for for good deals. They're not as easy to come by as I think they were. There's like everyone's saying, there's a lot less inventory out there now. But if you're looking and if you're open to maybe going outside of your niche a little bit, you can still find deals out there. Sure.
Yeah, and that's we're definitely going to touch on the financing aspect of it because I know me and you had a long conversation about debt versus staying debt free. So we will definitely get into that at some point. Shaun, I know you recently slowed down on your flips, back in the rental game, hitting it hard. What's it look like for you for 2021?
Guys, I'm pretty bullish for a couple of reasons. One reason, to echo what my guys just said, dude, money's cheap, right? Money's real cheap. So I'm trying to take advantage of as much of it as I can. I've been raising private money to secure more deals, and that's been working well because, well, I can get into that. But the other reason I'm really bullish is my model. I stick with affordable housing, and a lot of that's subsidized. And I mean, as you guys probably know, it's pretty stable, right? Kind of market. I want to say recession proof. I would never say that, but it's pretty stable.
Yeah, definitely, and that's how we did really well with our. I guess on the topic of 2020 and COVID, I think something that's pressing on a lot of people's plates and something that we just dealt with inside of our business. Maybe Shaun, you want to start off on this one. Is how have you been handling the eviction moratoriums in 2020 and going into 2021? Have you had to change your business model, your lease lengths, or anything along those lines to protect against that?
Guys, I'll tell you, just to be blunt, I mean, I'm kind of taking it, right? I've got one in my portfolio, which is a couple dozen units. I've got one bad pay, and I filed an FTP on her back in September, and I have a court date, not an eviction date, a court date in March. So there's nothing you can do right now. And if with the new administration, if there happens to be a moratorium extension, who knows how much longer that's going to go on. So to your question specifically, have I altered my lease to kind of, to account for the times? I really haven't. Although I've just placed 2 or 3 new tenants. As I said, we're pretty bullish, so we're acquiring. And so I might consider that, but no, I've not made any changes to my docs, but I'm definitely leaning much more, I'm steering much harder in the subsidized lane than I am in the market rent stuff. Everything I'm looking at now, I'm looking to rent subsidized.
Yeah, I mean, with our recent acquisition with that 76-unit building, we had a lot more market tenant exposure than what we're used to. And I was talking to Vadim about this the other day, is that we've actually changed our lease lengths on certain tenants that we feel like they might have an issue paying down to 6 months so we can get quicker to that tenant holdover, right? Because there is no eviction. It is a big issue. Vadim, I know we were talking about this the other day. How have you had to change your business model at all with leasing to your tenants?
I mean, I haven't made too many adjustments, honestly. I've got about 7 or 8% of my tenants are at some level of either completely not paying or maybe paying a little bit less than what they usually were. I mean, we've taken down some of our commercial tenants. We have reduced their rents just because, like we were talking about earlier with the haircuts, we're all getting haircuts less. I've got a salon in one of my properties. She's getting a lot less business as usual. I mean, before she was a great tenant, so I want to work with her and make it happen. So, we're kind of altering our current agreements on some properties. As far as in the future, I mean, my strategy was always I always want as long of a lease as possible. And I think we're going to continue with that, but we're possibly looking into month-to-month leases and extending our lease beyond the initial 1 year instead of renewing them for additional years. So that's something we're looking into as well. But other than those couple things, not a lot of real big changes as far as the lease goes.
Yeah, I think it's tough, because we're all so rooted in our ways. You're so used to getting annual renewals, and it's tough. And you're like, oh, I'm going to expose myself, but I don't think it's that bad. But it's definitely something you need to be aware of, especially the way of the world today. And Aaron, I don't know what you're doing in your single family stuff, or if you want to comment how you've had to change anything in any of your short-term rentals with Corona, or what you expect to do in 2021.
Yeah, so it's funny. Me, Vadim, and Shaun actually talked for about 2 hours just about all these topics. And one of the things, Shaun will catch up to me after I do my little spiel. But he's got creative ways to get people in for like long-term leases, like an 18 or a 2-year lease or a 3-year lease, which is a fantastic concept. For me, I've only got one tenant that's behind a significant amount. Last time we did an interview, I had one guy that was 13,000 behind. He actually caught up, surprisingly. I got a guy who's behind like 5,000 right now. But there's nothing I can do because the ones that I have that are behind are in PG County. And the process to get evicted in PG County right now isn't even on the table. Like, they're not even opening the courts back up. So, like Shaun was just saying, like, you just got to take it. Or Vadim was saying, you just got to take it at some point, because they're relatively good tenants. When they get back on their feet, they'll pay you, and there's no way to get rid of them right now. So why make it harder for yourself down the future and make a bad tenant out of them? As long as they maintain their property and take care of it, at least you got a body in there who's maintaining the property. In terms of short term, I actually had a long conversation with a investor out in Delaware, and she was telling me that one of the reasons she took all of her properties off of Airbnb was because they can cancel last minute, and Airbnb would actually refund all their money, versus the VRBO and the other ones, the HomeAways, where they're not going to cancel last minute on you and screw you over. Because if you decide last minute, you're like, I just don't want to make the drive. Sorry for the residence owner. We just turned one of our new builds. So Jimmy was talking earlier about doing prefab houses. We did a prefab house build in Deep Creek Lake. It was going to be a short-term rental. We decided to put that in the market, and it was under contract before it even hit the MLS. Before it was probably about 90% complete before we hit the market and sold.
Since obviously we can't control the past of what's currently happening right in our current rentals, are you doing anything kind of with your buying strategy moving forward? I mean, I understand the concept that debt's very, very cheap right now, and we're all kind of get our hands on whatever we can at the right numbers. I mean, you taking that into consideration? I mean, obviously this isn't going to happen forever, right? But who knows? It could be another year. I mean, just based on logistics, like, that's just what it is. We've had lots of conversations of when people think the residential market's going to collapse, and even if there's signs that it could collapse, like they open things back up, it's still going to be so. It takes so long to foreclose on a property. It takes time to evict. Like, are you taking any of that stuff into consideration right now of stating, hey, I might not, I don't know, I have to buy it at 6 months less what my rent amounts would be or something? Or is it just like, hey, if the deal works right now, let's just do it. And, I know things are going to perform.
I'd say that I'm a little bit more conservative now than what I was even like 6 months ago. Even though I have signed a few contracts, it's kind of scary to think about what's going to happen when all these foreclosures do eventually get caught up. Before COVID, so in February of 2020, almost a year ago, I signed a contract to buy a foreclosure property in Baltimore City. It still has not gone through. Like, I've been under contract that long with it. And then we had one in Calvert County that did go through just a few months ago. So once this, we get caught up to a year of foreclosures, it's going to be either just they're all going to come out at one time, and there's going to be just a huge amount of properties on the inventory, and it's just going to be, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. That's the challenging part. You just don't know what's going to happen with that. But we're still buying and still just trying to find a good deal, but and being more conservative than we were in the past.
And I think that process is a lag. It'll take time. I mean, they just logistically can't handle it. I mean, if any of you remember, 06 to 07, 08, and then, stuff happening again in 9 and 10, or, the lag from the peak as it starts trending back down, it took 5 or 6 or 7 years sometimes for some of these banks to get their stuff together, because logistically it worked. And a lot of jurisdictions take a long time to foreclose. So, and he just mentioned as well, 2008 all over again. I mean, who knows if that's the case? I mean, there's a really big difference right now compared to 2008, and banks don't give away free money. Right. I mean, free related to cheap, but it's for the most part well-deserved. If a borrower is unqualified or doesn't have great credit, it is hard to get a loan. And I think we all know that.
I think they are going to be quicker with some of those foreclosures, though, because back in 2008, 2009, everything was still done on paper. There wasn't anything like this. There wasn't, there was no like video conferencing. So if you were out, and nothing was getting done. Whereas now I think they're able to push things through a lot quicker. People are able to work from home, and it's a lot more normal to work from home for people. So I don't know if it's going to take as long, but
yeah, I agree with that. But the sheer process of doing it, I mean, obviously there's a commercial foreclosure, then there's a residential foreclosure, and consumer residential foreclosures take longer. And I mean, it's very, very easy. Consumers can file bankruptcy. They can object to this. They object to that. Everything has to be sanctioned, right? Like it's just a matter of takes time, right? And then also banks are strategic, right? They don't want to just drop all their inventory overnight.
Yes.
So supply and demand kicks in as well.
If you look at the economics of it, anytime there's a inflation period in the U.S., they tend to use the real estate market as a stabilizer. So the rates are going to stay down for quite a bit, I think. And I don't think they're going to flood the market. It's not going to be like 07, 08, that time period, because it was a different animal. Whereas now it's they kind of learn from the past. They're going to keep the rates low to keep the market moving forward. That's one of the reasons that there's no houses in availability right now for sale. It's getting bought up. So I really think that if they do have another dip, I don't think it's going to be as severe. It'll probably be stagnant for a while more than anything else. You're not going to get a appreciation like you used to. And then they're not going to throw, the entire, like Jason just said, he's not going to throw the entire backlog of houses back in the market, because then it's going to tank the market again, drop all the house values because there's too many houses in the market for sale.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into us, and none of us are going to know exactly how it plays out. And the scary part of all of it is, like, think about what happened like right when COVID hit with the stock market, just over freaking night. I mean, stuff happens so fast that you're in it. It's too late, unfortunately. So you just make educated decisions today. That's the best that we can all do.
Hey, what's more scary, when it goes down like that, or when AMC and GameStop go through the roof? That's what I'm
it's funny. I was on my my little investing app before I got on here, putting stop losses. So if it drops below a certain price, it'll sell, so I don't lose money. I think it's great that the guys are doing it. Like, they're taking the hedge fund guys and putting the money back in the middleman's pocket.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the types of rentals in general that you guys prefer. Do you guys like projects, like value add types of projects, or do you like stabilized stuff? I see both sides of it. I've owned both sides of it. I know a lot of people that are into both sides, and I know Ian's more of a value add guy, but there's something to be said about buying something that's stabilized and ready to go. So I guess we can start and ask all three of you guys that question. Aaron, do you like stuff that you have to do a big value add to, or something that's kind of stabilized, plug and play, let's go?
Well, you know me. You know I'm too involved in my properties. You always say that. And Shaun and I and Vadim and I talked about this yesterday. We had like 2 hour conversation, and we tend to like value add just because if you put 5,000 into it, it might be worth 5,000 more in the back end. You have more of an equity spread in the back end. Your overhead might be lower. That's just more hands on for me. You know, if I have the tools to do it, I'm going to do it. But my situation is a little bit different because I have 24 hours on and then I'm off for 3 days. So I can go to my properties and do the work if I want to. If I don't want to, then I can still hire it out. It really depends on the situation. But in terms of like value add, though, like we can get into the amount of renovations it needs because, you know, there's a difference between a resale renovation and a rental renovation. I learned yesterday from Shaun that in Baltimore, if you add a fan, it adds on like $50 more a month to your Section 8 rental. I had no idea. So for me, a value add is a smarter move for me because it benefits me in the long run.
Yeah, and I think we all like the value adds, right? Because that's where we all get that equity pop that we're all looking for. But I'm going to challenge Shaun here because, Shaun, one of your first deals was, if I'm correct, a stabilized portfolio that you got owner finance, and now you've done some value add properties. I guess which one do you like better, or do you see a fit for both types of investing styles? I'd like to get your opinion on that.
So, I mean, we all know each other on the call well enough to know I'm also a value add fan, right? It was instilled in me early on to not buy someone else's equity, right? To build my own, to create my own, really, through the renovation process. And so buying these, you know, value add type properties. I will say, to your question, Ian, I do think there's a place for both, right? Because there are people that don't want to deal with the headache or the risk from construction. They might love their job, right? Teachers, nurses. I mean, maybe this is a bad year to use those two as examples, but you get the point, right? Those two are callings, they're not jobs. And so I think people love to do that, but they want to subsidize their income and offset it a bit. So in that case, I can see a fit for a turnkey rental. But if I can buy 3 value add properties for the same cash outlay as I could buy 1 turnkey and then triple the cash flow, I have a hard time buying the turnkey. And Ian, when you and I first met, man, you were back. You remember this was the turnkey days of, what was that? Cash cow, wasn't it?
Yeah, cash cow, man. We could go in, buy properties, turn them and burn them, and sell them off to stabilized investors. And there was a time and place the market allowed for it,
right,
to do it. And I agree with you. I think there's people out there that like their job and they don't want to deal with the headache and real estate. Like as to Aaron's point of, hey man, like I can diversify my risk against what's going on in the marketplace through real estate and take a nice stable return. Now, Vadim, with some of your multifamily and your commercial properties, I'm sure they were value add, but some of the stuff's already stable in that. Like, how does that look for you when you're doing those types of properties? How do you back that out into your numbers?
Yeah, so I bought both. I mean, I will say that I prefer value add. I mean, just like what everybody else is saying, I want to build that equity myself. I don't want somebody else to get it. So I've bought both, and the majority of mine have been value add. But I have bought stabilized properties that have tenants there. They're paying, everything's already quote unquote done. But they had additional opportunities. We expanded some of the units. We added other uses to the existing space. So you got to be creative with it as well. But I would defend the value add for certain people. Shaun, exactly what you're saying. My brother is a dentist. It's a perfect example. He likes real estate, but at the same time, he has a 9-to-5 job. He's a dentist. He's busy. He doesn't have the time or really the ability to go and manage a renovation and see it through. He just wants to put his income somewhere. He likes real estate in that sense, and he wants to buy something that's basically turnkey. And maybe it'll need some, cosmetic updates in the future or something like that. And he's just gonna have somebody else manage it for him. So I think that's a good option.
And I think time versus money, that's, a turnkey model is great for him in that situation.
Yep.
I mean, even guys like myself, like I like the turnkey model. I understand the value add. I've talked to Ian a lot about, their business model related to like, I want to do it the right way. I want to know what's in there. I want to know when my next, that I'm going to have, when my upcoming CapEx expenses are going to be, they're going to get pushed out this certain period. I mean, there's a lot of unknown. I bought some turnkey. I bought some that are value add. And I do agree that the turnkey ones end up being a little bit more of a nightmare and the unknowns, but it's, I guess, each their own.
And I think once you get to a certain level, there's only so much value add you can really do. I mean,
Right.
you know, if you're at 100, 200, 300 units or whatever, you know, you're not going to be buying single families that much. You're going into each one and like, you know, doing renovations. At that point, I think it's going to get a lot easier just to buy, you know, somebody's portfolio that's already stabilized and just to be able to, you know, to build.
Yeah, and force appreciation
thing-
through increased rents and you know, stabilizing a little bit of problems inside that portfolio.
Right.
So, go.
Another thing, I don't like to go in there and buy somebody else's renovation job because I don't know what kind of quality work they do. So if it's a flip, then I got to go back and look over to see what they did to the property. I don't want to tear out what they did because they just took shortcuts. So at least if I'm going in there, I know what I'm getting.
Ian, let me build on what you asked specifically. You said your first deal, Shaun, was that 10-unit, that turnkey property or a turnkey portfolio.
Yeah.
That thing, what I didn't realize was that guy was trying to sell something he wanted sold, right? I was buying this dude's problems. I didn't realize he wasn't telling me about bed bug issues in a 2-unit where upstairs is not doing what they should be, and it's causing issues downstairs. And he didn't tell me about that stuff, right? So I inherited some problems. I inherited his people, and some of them were great, some were not. So when you say turnkey, it sounds like you might be buying a brand new property, but that's not always the case, right? It's not always fully renovated. And so I prefer in my model, which is a question I think you guys are going to get into, but I much prefer lead-free houses in my model. And if I'm buying turnkey and it's not lead-free, that automatically doesn't fit my model. So I'm already making concessions. It's already got me feeling kind of bad, kind of in some sort of way. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I do agree with that, because, you know, a nice livable house, unfortunately, is, you know, equivalent to having to do almost a full rehab on some of these things these days, depending on the age of the house and the areas. And I know that there's a lot of national companies that do turnkey investments, and, you know, they attract out-of-state buyers. And I think in the Baltimore area in general, you know, a lot of these are older properties, so it's a little bit challenging compared to maybe other areas of the country. Let's go through some buy-in formula stuff. I'm curious to know, you know, how you're looking at these things. Are you looking at them as an equity approach, as an income approach? So obviously the standard buying process, let's say you're buying a flip, is 65 cents on the dollar minus construction costs. You know, these days it might be 70 or 72 cents based off the after repair value. It's obviously a little bit different in the rental world. Like, are you guys trying to have a certain amount of built-in equity after the fact, or are you trying to target a certain return, either as a project or IRR on your personal money? How are you guys setting these up? Or is it just straight like, hey, listen, I'll buy anything as long as I can make $500 a month. You know, I'm simple. And I know other people have that model as well. Like Aaron, like what are things that you look at, you know, for your portfolio?
So I think it depends on what you're trying to do with the house. So if it's a short-term rental or a long-term rental, Shaun and I talked about this yesterday too. Is he said, are you okay with having 20% equity in a property and having, you know, 80% mortgaged out? And for me, it really depends on the property. Like, how long I'm going to keep it for? Am I going to refinance? What am I going to do with it? Short-term rentals tend to have more management issues, and you can buy it for a higher price because you're getting a higher return, but then you have to do more management and more replacements. And also, like our Ocean City property that our family had, we're replacing knives and forks and spoons and bowls up to 5 times a year. You know, they were ripping the fans down. They were jumping off the balconies into the water. Like, they're hard on the properties. Whereas a long-term rental, you have somebody in there usually at nighttime pre-COVID. So they came home, they ate their dinner, they went to bed, watched TV. So they're not hard in the house. So for me, when I look at properties, last time we did an interview on this, my number is $400 in net profit. So I want $400 per door minimum on everything I own. Most of them I have right now are actually all of them right now are significantly higher than that. But at $400 is $4,800 a year net profit. So if something goes wrong in the property, that will cover your costs for most of the roof, most of your HVAC stuff, windows, doors, floors, walls, repairs, yada yada yada. So and you're still in a profit.
Sorry, is that NOI or is that cash is that cash after debt service? Like, that's after everything's in.
That's after everything: property manager, taxes, insurance, mortgage, yada yada yada. So for me, it's $400 and get it back in 2 years. Ocean City, of course, they're ripping that thing up. Look, man, Ocean City is Hagerstown with a beach. All right. Yeah. So I'm looking back in Delaware now, just out of curiosity, just to play around with it. That's where I'm looking at doing a possible 1031. But for right now, like, it's short-term rentals is a good money maker, but it's a lot more management. I don't have
Yeah.
I don't have the patience to manage it. So if you do get a short-term rental, you're going to want to get a good property manager if you don't want to deal with the renters and the headaches and the phone calls. That's my opinion. That's how I like to work. But
sorry, I was going to say, the more case management you have to do, the more you should get paid for it. I think we all know that, right? Like, we all look for higher returns. We deal with some problems to get higher returns. Where there's drama, there's money. Now, Shaun, I'd ask you, I know you probably underwrite a little bit harder. What's your underwriting model look like?
When I look at these things, when I first started, I just kind of plucked a number out of thin air, right? I thought, what's my time worth? And so I decided, from hearing all these nightmare stories of tenants calling you at 3 a.m. with a leaky toilet, which we all know, just turn your damn phone on. Anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought. With that said, I kind of like, I pulled a number out of thin air. I'm like, what's my time worth? I decided if I had 10 of these headaches, what's my time worth? I decided $3,000 a month, so 10 of them. So I thought $300 a door per unit per month cash flow after operating expenses, debt service, everything, right? My portfolio average is about 485, 490. I just looked into it the other day, but I prefer, it's got to meet a minimum 300 cash flow, and I want 70 to 75% equity in the deal after it's stabilized. That's my criteria, because to Aaron's point, I questioned this yesterday. I'm like, listen, I like leverage. I like leverage when it's cheap too, right? But I don't like the idea of leverage, over leveraging yourself, and a correction happens and all my houses are valued up here on paper. And you know where I'm going with this. So I don't want to be everything I own at 80% equity. All of a sudden, everything takes a value correction. And I'm underwater on an entire portfolio. It's a worst case scenario. So I want some equity. I want some cushion. 70 to 75.
Yeah, and I think as you get more sophisticated, people start to realize the risk. You start signing the dotted line on loans that have a decimal point on it right after the first number or the second number. You're like, holy crap, like, what am I doing? And you start to think about these things. I think as everybody evolves, you start to get into this of, what does this look like? Let me underwrite every last thing. This is everything I've learned. It grows as you grow. And with that being said, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. These guys are open to answer any questions you got. As you can see, we're getting fun comments from people. We're getting all kinds of crazy stuff. We'll post it. We'll talk about it. And we'll go from there. And Vadim, what I wanted to do is ask you, because you do multifamily and commercial, what does it look like for you between your underwriting of commercial properties or multifamily properties versus your single family? Do you do it the same? Do you underwrite them the same, or do you have two different processes?
So I was just thinking about this while you guys were talking about it. And I think one of the things that I want to mention is, on top of just a financial way that I look at it, I also want to look at it from a time and management point of view, because I self-manage all my properties. So when I'm looking at a property, in addition to seeing how much money I'm going to make from it, I also want to factor in how much of my time is it going to take to manage this particular property. So I'm really looking for ease of use and, just the least amount of headaches out of these properties as I can. So with that being said, a lot of my properties I'm buying for, slightly higher numbers in better locations. So I actually have higher equity in the property, because I'm not able to get a 75% LTV a lot of times because the property value is high. My rent comparatively is not enough to get it up to that 75% LTV. So I'm okay with being, in the 50 to 60% range, as long as it covers my initial investment. As far as a set number, how much I need to make from each particular one, I don't really have anything like that. If there's a property that I know I'm going to be able to get long-term tenants, ease of use, I'm okay with, having a lower cash flow on that property. And as far as differences for commercial and residential and multifamily, it is different, but it's not really, a huge change one way or the other. I'm okay with making less money on the commercials than I am on the residentials, just because I know I can get 3-year leases on them, 4 or 5 year leases on those, and just have less headaches in the future.
Yeah, I do want to add one thing. So different guys invest for different reasons. You can invest for cash flow, you can invest for depreciation, you can invest for appreciation. I tried to buy some a fourplex in Trinidad and DC years ago, and I bid $50,000 on one of them. I bid $50,000 over the asking price, and I was like, "Sweet, got it." in the bag. Within 12 hours, there were 17 cash offers over what I was asking. And the cash offers numbers were at a massive loss, like $1,000 a month, massive loss. But they held on to the property for 2 years, and the value of the property went up $100,000. They took a loss of 24,000, so they still made out with $100 and some odd $1,000 profit. So I think all of us are more cash flow investors and not so much an appreciation investor.
Right.
I mean, we could go into that for sure. I love that conversation, man. I mean, I'm so I don't buy on speculation, right? I'm not going to speculate in hopes that global warming continues and my property gets a little closer to the water and Fells Point, right? Like I'm not a speculator. I'm not after appreciation. I want to know how that thing's going to perform tomorrow. I like predictability. Predictability is safe and scalable for me, right? And there's some safety in that. The other thing with that is that appreciation. It's just I don't know. It's a speculation game, and I think the cash flow is just king. Plus, dude, I mean, honestly, my entire portfolio, if that thing is worth in 30 years what it's worth today, I don't give a damn. I don't care. I'm going to get a big ass pay raise when those mortgages are paid off, right? So that's nice. So my cash flow is going to improve tremendously. And this person has just gotten a nice home to live in and helped pay my mortgage off for me. It's a win-win for everyone. So you're not going to find me in Federal Hill renting out to these 6,000 square foot, $5,000 monthly market rents to some bros in hopes that in 30 years I bought it for 500. It's cash flow in 300. By the way, my hood houses do that, right? So you can't. It just those appreciating homes, those higher value homes aren't going to cash flow like I want them to, and it just doesn't fit my model. It's not for me, man. Appreciation is not for me.
Yeah, I agree. And as much as appreciation is great, and we'd all be thankful if it happened all the time, I know a lot of people that they base everything off appreciation and they think that's the norm, and it's not. And that's affected DC a lot better than it has in Baltimore in general. So it depends on what market you're in. But I know a lot of investors, and I still do loans for some of these investors, that they just think that's the game, right? Oh, it's DC. It's going to continue to go up and up and up and up. And it's like, you just wait until you pop. Like that thing pops. And, it's pretty sad when someone creates a net worth of a few $1,000,000 in a short period of time. And then all of a sudden it collapses to nothing. And there's nothing to show for it. And that will happen if they don't follow the right steps. Let's jump into some financing facilities for these types of projects, because different, a lot of different rental property owners, operators do things differently. Do you guys try to do this on kind of the two-step approach, especially since you're all value-add investors? So you go and you either use hard money or private money or your own cash, or I don't know, some sort of guidance line or some guidance line of credit from a bank, and you try to get this thing stabilized, ready to go, and then you refinance. Do you try to do it? I guess if you have a guidance line of credit, technically it could be one shot, right? You do the construction component, then you perm it out after the fact. How are you setting these up? Are you using your own money or private money or whoever's money just to get these things going, and then try to get cheap debt down the road? Aaron, maybe we'll start with you.
So I'm all over the board. And so I've done my personal money, literally cash out of the bank. I've done lines of credit. I've done private money. I've done a bunch of hard money with you. I've done a bunch. So it really depends on the project I'm doing. So I just sent so one of the guys I use is at Animio Bank in Frederick, and I just sent him to Vadim, Shaun, and Matt or Mike Webb, which was on here earlier. But basically, I'll leverage all the houses and get a version of a HELOC, because they'll still do it with a LLC, not just in your name, and then get lines of credit to use to buy other houses. So that's the most recent one I did. I just took one of my lines of credit and I just went and bought a house for cash, and that's how I won the competition bid. But the only thing I haven't done is a 203K loan, and the reason is because nowadays I don't think there's enough houses with enough equity in them for me to actually do a 203. Like, they're out there, and for the end home buyer who's going to live in it, it makes sense. But for a rental property, for us, or for me specifically, I don't think it makes sense, because I don't think I can get the juices worth the squeeze.
Right. And I think we've all used every loan product out there, because you have to. It's a tool in your war chest. Vadim, what does it look like for you during stabilization? What type of capital are you using to stabilize these properties?
Yeah, kind of like what Aaron said. I mean, I'm all over the place. Hard money, money out of my own pocket. I've got several lines of credit set up, and that's probably my preferred way is the lines of credit. It's been really helpful in being able to put out those, big cash offers. And I think you're taken really seriously by having, cash offer with no financing contingencies. It's always good. So that's helped me. And then afterwards, we're just, kind of doing the burst strategy. I think that's kind of probably all three of us are doing something similar. Starting out, I was doing flips, and all the money I made from flips would go straight into buying rental properties. And that's kind of how I was able to get some of those lines of credit initially set up based on those properties that I own free and clear.
Yeah, that's a great business model. Stack cash. I think Steve alluded to that yesterday during Team Flippers. He said, I take my cash, I buy a rental free and clear, and I utilize that line of credit to go back and buy more flips. And you build your own banking system. There's some really good books out there on that. George Anton, the Banker's Code's a really good one. Shaun, we talked a lot about the front end financing. What's your back end financing look for you nowadays, or what are you looking for?
A lot is very similar to what you've already heard. The burst strategy is a big deal, right? So it's got to fit a specific role on the backside. We definitely need to know when you're underwriting it on the front what lending criteria and terms are currently, right? Because we all know that banking terms and criteria and appetites just kind of change pretty regularly. And so you need to be aware of what your lenders are offering so you can calculate accordingly and properly so you don't find yourself in a tough spot. But I've done a bit of it all myself: hard money, private money, institutional financing. I like creative financing, some seller financing, owner financing type of stuff. But primarily what I'm doing is I'm taking private money. I've got a couple of private lenders that I've kind of, cultivated over the years, and they're lending 100% on my deals these days. We can go into that, but on the backside, man, I'm just looking to, honestly, it sounds bad, but whoever is on offer me the best damn money on the backside. Honestly, I'd love to have a line of credit that I could just go to every time and just fix and flip with my private and dump into that line every time. It was fixing, it was just copy and paste. But maybe that's not the best money, and I want the best deal, right? I want the best money. And right now, 30-year fixed for LLC loans in like low single digits, it's stupid money, man. I'm all over it. So that's kind of my strategy on the backside for stabilizing is whoever's got the best deal.
Yeah, and we it's like your insurance agent. You got to go shop them and break their balls every once in a while. Next, your policy is $1,000. Vadim absolutely killed it for me when he introduced me to the newest guy. We cut our stuff like in half. But with that being said, I want to do one follow-up question before Jason brings up another topic. Has anyone used like the national lenders, like the Lima Ones and the Corvest of the world? We used it. I didn't have a good experience. I went back to just traditional banking. Has anyone had good experiences in that?
I mean, I've had a so-so experience. I had a little bit of a bait and switch experience with Lima One before. That was a long time ago. Maybe one person specific. I don't want to trash the company. But I'm with you. I've recently just gone back to some local folks, the national lenders. Although the national lenders, I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're pulling from a weird appraisal pool. But man, these folks have been appraising my houses lately aren't from Baltimore, and that's worked out in my favor.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary, right? But
you take advantage of it while it's there.
You're damn right, dude.
And
I'm aware of its presence, so I'm not going to be stung by it. You know what I mean? I'm accounting for it over here, but I'm going to take advantage of it while I can.
I like using local guys just because it's a whole lot easier to get realistic numbers across the board. I am curious if any of you guys have used a 203K loan, because the easiest way for me is lines of credit. That's the easiest way. 203 sounds like the most complicated to me. So I'm curious if any of you guys have used it yet.
No.
Yeah, me either. No.
I think the homeowner product, Dan used it for his personal house. But other than that, I haven't seen many investors utilize it. It's too much work, It's just a lot of headache. You can go to Jason, and terrible pitch time. You go to Jason, you have a loan in how short of a period of time, and you're done, right? Like that. But that's the point of hard money, is to kind of absolve that issue. So
yeah. Well, I think for the most part, everyone who scales up a portfolio is doing it very similar to you guys are. They're using their own cash, a HELOC, private capital, hard money, whatever the case is, because they don't want to deal with the banks on the front end with construction. It's such a pain in the neck. I mean, when we bought, when we were heavy in buying our rental portfolio over and over and over, I tried to do a construction perm loan. with our local bank. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to put up all the cash. We're going to do all these things. And 3 months later, just refinance us out. And, we'll try to get as much of our own personal cash out as we could. We still had to keep a good amount of cash into it, but that works. It's just, you might not have a property today, but tomorrow you will. And it's never going to be the right place at the right time. And you got to move quick. So,
I even did that with my hard money lenders. Sometimes they would finance the purchase price, and then I would just do the renovation out of pocket. So I don't have to meet them for draws. I don't have to show the work that I've done, any of that kind of stuff. It's just a lot easier, quicker.
Yeah, it's an easier thing. Let's there's a bunch of questions that came in. Let's do Nick's question real quick, and I can actually.
I was getting excited.
Yeah, we'll do Glenn's question next. So, and I can comment on this as well because I just did this, Nick.
Hey, and Nick, thank you for your donation yesterday. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it, buddy. Do you guys ever sell after a hard tenant cycle where it makes more sense to list the property after cleaning it up to take big profits versus starting another tenant cycle? I can go first on this one, Nick, because I just did that on a lot of our properties. As our properties were turning over, I realized that we had owned them for 5 or 6 years and they appreciated in value. And I looked at the cost to do a turnover based on a cost to either fully renovate it, just get it nice livable again or what. And we ended up selling a lot of them this way because to me, I felt that the asset class that I was in, I felt that not that it necessarily peaked but it was towards the higher end, right? It sold for, or was priced higher than I would have thought. So if I can get top dollar for it, I can redeploy that capital into other hard money loans, other rental properties, other stuff. So it made more sense. And I figured out whatever my profits were, and I figured out if I reinvested them, where it worked compared to my current rental income that I was getting. So I'm all about it. You know what they say? I mean, in general, with real estate and assets is over time, you up your asset class, right? So you buy a crappy property, and then you trade it up for a better asset and a better asset and a better asset. So again, it depends on the situation, right? Like there's a lot of properties out there that we might all own that are, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, $100,000 that might bring in, $1,200 to $1,800 gross a month. And then after cost, they're still really good rentals, right? So it might not make sense to necessarily trade that in, right? Because let's say you get $100,000 in cash today, could you replace that return? But I'm personally all about that. But these guys are the experts.
Shit. I'm doing that right now too. I bought a property in West Virginia as a getaway place for me and my wife and friends if they want to go up there and unwind. So I bought it from a wholesaler. The profit margin is 3 times higher than what I bought it for. So the agent who I'm dealing with up there was like, you can make twice as much as what you paid to put into it. If you put it in the market right now. So it's on the market right now. It's not moving fast because it's kind of a unique property. But the same thing with the house we're building in Deep Creek. Like we built it to make it a rental and now it's on the market and it's sold before we even hit the listing. So you really got to be liquid with your movements and kind of go with whatever the market's telling you to go with. Like don't get stuck in one facet of investing, because if you leave yourself open to the types of investing, whether it be flipping, wholesaling, because all of us have done the whole gambit. We've all done multiple types of investments. So open yourself up to be the biggest financial benefit for you in the long run.
Let me mention one more thing, and then Vadim and Shaun can talk about this too if they'd like. One of my buddies mentioned, and I really agree with this. He was like, "Listen, sell it for top dollar now, and in the future, if the market goes down, go buy it right back at 50 cents on the dollar." Now, obviously, we don't know if that will happen, but if an asset appreciates and you feel like it's a good number, do it.
But this goes back into 1031 too. Like if you can 1031 take that money and not get taxed on it, then roll into something that makes more money and make the money in the interim.
You want to jump into that topic a little bit, Ian?
Sure.
About 1031s?
I mean, I have my strong opinions on it, but then you're gonna back me into a political belief, and then you're like, you only think no. But seriously, I think there's a lot of case study behind 1031. I think it's going to be a hard way to go to get rid of. The long-term capital gains is something that I am fearful of. Cost-seg studies going away is not the end of the world. They've been around forever. So there is some stuff going on in Congress and at the highest level of this office in the United States that we should all be aware of. But I think luckily a lot of politicians own real estate, and hopefully we'll be protected against this one, because I think there's just a lot of case law against this that I don't think 1031 is going to go away. Go ahead, Aaron. Did you have something about it?
I've got very strong opinions on this, just like you do. So they say 1031 is going to go away, and a lot of people are saying it's not. So what's the argument? So 1031 is where you take all the profits and you buy a like kind property of the same value or more. So if I sell a house for $200,000 and I make $50,000 profits, I got to go buy a like property for another $200,001 and wrap that entire $50,000 profit into it. That's the whole premise. So you don't pay the either short-term or long-term capital gains. Short-term capital gains around 20%, long-term capital gains around 40%. Right now, Biden made a comment during his run for presidency where he said that he's going to get away with 1031 exchanges because they want to get their tax money. They also said that they're going to get rid of long-term capital gains and make it a flat 40% across the board. So everybody who flips a house or sells a house or does whatever, they're going to get hit with 40%. Same thing is going on with inherited properties. So 1031 is going to benefit you if you can afford to do the renovations on your own dime and wrap into another property, or the next property is going to be a bigger financial cash flow for you versus what you have now. It's a way to defer the taxes indefinitely until you die. So it depends on your game plan. Like the 1031 I'm going to do now, I might wrap it up and take a certain amount of money and put it into 2 different properties, because you have to identify, I think, 3 properties in 45 days and close within 180 days. So you have a month and a half to identify them, and you have 6 months to close on them. Will it go away? I don't think so, because too many people in Congress and Senate in the upper echelon have too many rental properties, and they use it all the time. So is it a possibility? Yes. Is it a probability? I would say no.
And if you haven't looked into this yet, Google it. We got some upcoming videos that we're going to be talking about. These DSTs.
Pop up next question that just came in. Portfolio cash out refis are greater than 1031s. Shaun or Vadim, you guys want to comment on, and if you know about this, like what happens with your refi cash that comes out? Is it taxable? What's your view on this versus using a 1031 exchange?
Mm-hmm.
I've done 1031 exchanges and I've found them to be pretty beneficial in the past. But I felt like unless it was a property that was a substantial number, I felt like it was a lot. Like if it was a smaller property that was under $100,000, it didn't seem to make sense with the amount of time it took and the effort it took. And then there's additional costs associated with it as well. As far as the differences go between that and the tax that you pay on like refied money, I don't know. I don't know if it would be considerably different or not. If one of them, if the 1031s do go away, then there's not really, any kind of options with that anyway. But what we were talking about earlier about selling off your properties that were difficult to deal with, what I was going to say about something like that is I've used that strategy to kind of clear up my portfolio, like with that 80-20 rule. 20% of your 20% of your 80% of your headaches are from 20% of your properties, right? So I'll find that 20% property, and that's the one that I get rid of. Like a perfect example is this one I bought a long time ago. Bought it for like $18,000. Horrible property. Should never have bought it, and I sold it for like $45,000. And I see it listed every year and a half. Like clockwork. Like somebody buys it, somebody gets rid of it. Somebody buys it, somebody gets rid of it. It's a great house, but it's in a horrible location, and it's just kind of taught me that lesson. And I think that's a way that you can kind of utilize to get rid of some of those properties instead of just a difficult rental cycle. I don't think I would get rid of something just because it was torn up too bad or whatever if it was a good property.
Yeah. No.
Ian, you want to talk more about this or no?
I think we could keep going on this. We've been going for about an hour. And I think these guys are more than happy to keep going. We'll probably go for another half hour if they're up for it. I do want to touch on, we can talk about this for a little bit more, but I definitely want to touch on some operational stuff. So I don't know. What do you think, Jay, or what do you guys want to do?
Yeah, let's talk about operations a little bit.
And then we'll come back to some of these other questions and comments. So, Shaun, I know you said you're in the subsidy market. Some people think I'm teeing this up, but this is a serious question because we have similar type portfolios. I'm interested to see how you set your rental properties up. Are they similar to what we do? What do you like to have for amenities? Additions, subtractions. Like, what does that look like for you when you're renovating a property and operationally when you're delivering it to a tenant?
Great question. So when I'm renovating a property, I do a number of the same things on every property, right? Because fix and copy and paste again. Think back to like McDonald's, right? I'm trying to assembly line this thing. So I use the same cabinets, the same color of cabinets, the same paint color, the same paint style, the same tile. Every one of my damn houses looks the same. But that makes turnovers easy. It makes my budgeting of the rehab on the front side very predictable. And I know what the end product is, and it performs, right? People like to live in these houses, right? So we've started, because granite is cheap, for instance, we've started putting granite in our houses. And if it's a full rehab, I'll put stainless in these houses, even if it's a subsidized rental. And for those that are watching that don't know what subsidized rental is, just think Section 8 or another government-funded program. It might sound crazy.
Where's the book?
I'm trying.
I'll fall over.
Shameless plugs. Yeah, there
you go.
Great book. A book I bought on Amazon called Subsidized. The author, or at least one of the authors is a true schmuck. No, but so to continue on that, a couple other things I don't do. Some deletions. That was one of your questions. Just to get granular, I don't put dishwashers in my rentals, right? I don't put garbage disposals in my rentals, and I know some people that do. I allow pets in my rentals. There's things that for my operating. Well, let me stop there. I won't go into the tenant stuff, but because you did ask about on the front side first. So my rentals, they're all lead free. They're all gray, white. You get the picture, right? They all kind of look the same.
We were just talking about this the other day, just because I'm looking at Vadim's backdrop of gray. I'm like, what made me paint the house? I could scan the whole house, like 10 different colors, because
man,
you have is gray. But there is an advantage to it. Vadim, what do you do in your multifamily specifically? Because I know you have how tall is that building over up on Callow? It's pretty tall, 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's a 3-story one. We've got another one that's 4 stories plus a half exposed basement. So yeah, we've got kind of a broad, really broad portfolio. Almost all of our properties do have dishwashers, Shaun, like what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say almost all of them have garbage disposals. It's just one of those things I think our tenants really need. And I don't have many Section 8 tenants or many subsidized tenants. So my amount of subsidized tenants is really pretty low. And from that, you're talking about lead. I've got a mix. A lot of mine are lead free, but I've still got some lead safe properties. A lot of the ones that we buy are older homes, but in nicer locations, and it would be difficult to make them lead free. There'd be really a lot of work on a lot of those to make them lead free. We've also got other properties that we've gotten tons of historic tax credits, like from state and federal levels, where the interior has to be renovated to a certain degree that making that lead free would just be really cost prohibitive. So to get those tax credits, we've done some of those as still being lead safe. But as far as finishes and things like that go, I am doing the same paint colors, generally same cabinets. I have kind of not upgraded, but changed kind of as styles change, maybe 5 or 8 years ago, darker cabinets were kind of in style. Now everything is going towards lighter cabinets. But we do a lot of things like painting cabinets if they're in good shape, because a lot of times we're buying properties that don't really need full depth renovations. So we'll just paint them to the color that we need. As far as finishes, though, we are buying almost all stainless steel appliances. I would say every appliance we buy now is stainless steel, but we're buying like all of our dishwashers. We get ones with a built-in food disposer so they don't get clogged. All of our garbage disposals, we tape like the little key to the bottom of it. So if it gets clogged and a tenant sends in a maintenance request, we can send them a quick canned response on how to unclog it, and now we don't have to send somebody out there. So we've, just one of those things that takes a little bit of time to develop, and then you kind of get to see what kind of works for you and what works for your portfolio.
How are each of you guys managing your projects? We never really talked about that. Do you guys have third-party rental companies? Do you do it in-house? What type of software you use, in Excel or software or a third party?
That's a good question for this group, Jason, because we're all kind of all over the boards, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
Shaun, what are you working with?
Dude, I'm about as archaic and antiquated as they come, bro. I've got some badass Excel spreadsheets in my computer, man. I'm slowly drinking the QuickBooks Kool-Aid for my bookkeeping. And I've been, dude, I'll tell you, I'm not quick to embrace technology. I'm a big fan of systematizing. I know that's that's kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, but yeah, man, I'm getting to QuickBooks for my bookkeeping, and but my property management is all just customized Excel spreadsheets.
So what do you do with like a maintenance request? What do you do when a check comes in?
Yeah, dude. So
walk us through that.
I'm glad you asked that question. So Vadim made mention a minute ago about something about tenant payments, and that fortunately, as things have evolved, I've got almost all of my tenants. One blind guy lives in one of my houses and still writes a check. Everybody else is paying electronically, which is great. So they're paying via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. They've got an automatic receipt, right? And so that works out well for me. I do that most of the time. I don't have, when they have service requests, my portfolio is getting to the point now that it's going to start to topple over, and it's not going to be management and inducive to continue what I'm doing. But I'm literally just a point of communication. I'll text with my tenants, I'll email with my tenants, and I just kick it over to my contractors. So all day I'm just kind of, and it doesn't happen often, right? Because these houses are fully rehabbed. But when I do have a maintenance issue, I just kick it over to my contractor. I tell them to coordinate. They coordinate together, and I'm out of the picture. So there's not a lot of involvement for me. I will say, in the beginning, I made a refrigerator magnet. If you have an HVAC issue, call this person. If you have a plumbing issue, call this person. If you have an appliance issue, call this person. So and those people knew my threshold of spend, and if what they were there to do was going to exceed that number, they would hit me up and say, "Hey, are you cool? Otherwise, don't call me." I learned that from an old mentor of mine, because your time is valuable, right? And so that's what I'm doing, man. I know it's super archaic. It's not like Buildium, and it's not some sophisticated, shiny machine. It's just
doesn't necessarily need to be.
It works.
I think a lot of viewers can learn from that, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I bought a rental property, let's go out and get some sophisticated thing, and it just won't back out financially. And there's always stepping stones. Hey, you buy one property, you build a system, you do 5, and then you outgrow it, then you move to the next one. What are you doing, Vadim?
So I use Buildium. It's definitely the kind of core of my whole system. Buildium does my leases. Buildium does my advertising for my properties. I have everything set up through there. Buildium does all my payments. We actually don't even accept like check payments anymore. I have one tenant who is very, very elderly. She mails a check every month, but that's the only one. Otherwise, we do all of our payments through Buildium. Same thing for maintenance requests. Everything is done through Buildium. So for me, the biggest reason why we went to that, and we started using Buildium probably when we were about the like 7 or 8 property mark. And I think that's a really good place to kind of get into a system like that. And I think Buildium would be great for anybody that's from that maybe like five properties up to 100 or 200. I think it's scalable to that level. Beyond that, I feel like it might be a little bit too clunky, but it really does everything that I need really well. And again, like I was saying, the biggest thing for me is the ease of use, because I travel a lot, I'm out of the country a lot, and a lot of times the tenants, if they call me, I don't always answer. If they text, they don't have my number directly, they just have all our business numbers. But they know off the bat that if they call or text and they send in a maintenance request that way, it might not get handled. Even if they email it into us, it might not get handled. The only way to guarantee that a maintenance request is going to get handled is to submit a maintenance ticket. And generally, when we see it, if it's something straightforward, I send it, to one of our contractors, and they're able to handle it. And that's just been the way that we've done it for a while now, and it works really well. We also utilize like a virtual mailbox. So any checks that we do get, which we don't get a lot, they all go directly to our mailbox. All of our water bills, all that kind of stuff goes to a virtual mailbox. So if I'm not in town, everything gets scanned and I see it on my computer, and I'm able to send it somewhere if I need to. I can download it if I need to. And if I get a check, it'll send it to my bank and deposit it if I need to. So that's kind of another strategy that I've utilized.
Hey, Vadim, real quick before we go to Aaron on how he manages his portfolio, what's the demographic of your tenant base? Nurses, teachers. I know you definitely see a difference between you and Shaun. So that's the only reason I ask. Like, working professional, is that what you say your tenant base?
Yeah, we have a lot of working professionals. We've got teachers. We've got a lot of students, MICA students, UB students. We've got just kind of across the board.
Well, you can see the difference in the management per se between what Shaun handles and Vadim. You know, like when we bought that 76 unit building, a lot of market rate tenants, we were nervous, but it's a lot of, workforce housing, people that, blue collar type workers, and they have the ability, they go online, they pay everything, it actually got a little bit easier with some of this stuff.
Yeah. We have a lot of people in our, that are in the, late 20s, 30s. They, at this point, if I told them to mail in a check, it would just be, what, like you want me to mail a check somewhere? They're used to paying online. That's how they want to pay. So yeah, and that tends to work for us really well.
Yeah. And Aaron, how you managing your portfolio?
It's a long answer. I think so I have a property manager who manages pretty much everything I do. This goes back to networking. He's related to two guys I work in the fire department with. So I trust him. He does a great job. He knows what I'm looking for. We can bounce ideas off each other if we want to. But it takes anywhere from 8 to 12% for a property manager. But for me, it's worth it to get rid of the headache and put that responsibility on somebody else. That's just me, though. I do want to go back and respond to Nick's question from earlier. He said cash out refi. One thing that I've been talking to a couple of guys about is trying to get HELOCs on your properties, because if you do, you're not going to pay the taxes in that cash out refi that you normally would. But in terms of property management, that's the way I go, just because I don't want to answer the phone at night. And in terms of the kind of clientele that I'm getting, I think the location starts to dictate the type of tenants you'll have sometimes. So if you're in a high demand area, whether it be the school system or the amenities, the walking distance to whatever, you're going to get a hodgepodge of different people who want to rent from you. If you're out in the country, you're going to get somebody who's probably a little more reserved and quiet. If you're in the city, you're going to get somebody who's more vibrant. I think it just the location dictates the demographics.
Yeah, I mean, our West Virginia property, the property manager out there is the only property that we don't physically manage ourselves. We were sitting in his office one day. He's like, "Oh, yep, they're paying rent. Oh, yep, they're coming here to pay." I was like, "Dude, Donnie, no way." He's like, "Yeah, this is how people pay out here." You know what I mean? It's old school, but what's crazy where our building is that there's a hospital right up the street. They get traveling nurses all the time, so you get like every walk of life through there. So before, I do want to ask you guys, because Jason bugs me with this all the time, is what's your goal, man? What's your goal? Actually, Terry, if I should tag Terry.
That's a Terry comment, not a Jason comment.
No, you asked me to, but this is a Terry question. If you're listening, buddy, I'm going to tag you. Is what's your guys' goal? What does your portfolio look like? 50 free and clear and you're done. I need 1,000 units because some days I feel like I need that. And then like a day like today, I'm like, yo, dude, like what we got's enough, What's the overall goal of your portfolio? What does it look like for you guys in 10 years?
Why don't you guys start? Because I'm long-winded.
I'll happily go. So in 10 years, that's pretty good timing. So I've got a pretty specific goal. In 8 years' time, I'm going to stop. My plan right now, as it stands today, right? My goal could change tomorrow. But my goal today is in about 8 years, I'll be 45 years old. I'm going to plan to turn off the acquisition and really focus more on debt pay down, right? So I want to shift but I really want to focus hard. So I'd like to get the portfolio to about 80 doors or so in the next 8 years, and then transition to debt pay down over the next 20 years. So then, in 30 years time, I've got the portfolio of 80 doors free and clear. So that's the long-term goal for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. You can't really invest without a plan. And look, we all started. We're like, yeah, we're going to dominate the world. You got no plan, and you just go for it. And then over time, I think everyone starts to settle down, and they're like, yeah, man, like this makes sense. This is what feels right to us. Vadim, I mean,
I think I'm still haven't settled down yet. I don't have a goal. It's tough. Like I know what I want to buy, and I know the strategies that I want to use to get to wherever I want to get to, whatever that goal may be. I think like what we were talking about earlier, I think for me, the biggest topic for all these things is I want it to be easy to do. I don't want a lot of contact with my tenants. I don't want to have constant phone calls. I just want to buy easy properties that I know are going to be easy to manage. And I don't have like a set, like Shaun was saying, I don't need like this number, or I don't need like that exact number, whatever it may be. I just kind of have a rough idea of what I want to get to. If that takes 60 properties to 60 properties. If it takes 600 properties, it's 600 properties. And even if I set that goal for, 80 units, once I got to 80, I'm probably not going to stop. I'm just going to want, oh, well, there's another great property. I'm going to buy that one. There's another great property. I'm going to buy that one. So it's hard to set that kind of like final, I'm done, I'm finished number. I think it's more just kind of living your life how you want to and kind of how you want to spend your time and use this as a strategy to get there. And I think really, this, not just single family rentals, but multifamilies and commercials and kind of the range that we all have is just a great way to get there in general.
Yeah, I mean, we sat in on a 3-day mastermind at Terry's house, right? And this was a common topic of everybody, but I think you'd be happy if I shared this, is that like something that resonated with me, with you when you were sharing is like, you build a portfolio around your lifestyle, man. Like everyone's like, oh, well, it's single family real estate and you got to do this and you got to do that. And you're like, nah, dude, like I want to travel the world. And I did that. And I built this portfolio around what I want to do. You didn't let the portfolio do what it wants to do. And I think I think a lot of people should take a lesson from you on management and how to set it up. And I think it's pretty powerful.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that really was a strategy, and it was a goal that I worked towards. And I mean, I'm definitely not finished with it. There's always room to improve. I've got a lot of stuff in the back end. Luckily, I have a super smart wife who, is good with numbers. So she helps a lot with a lot of the back end stuff. So that's always helpful. Yeah.
How about you, Foster? I know me and you are on the same track. Got that good government job. We're going to get our pension. We're going to get out this bad boy. We're going to live till whatever. We're going to break the city.
God, I hope so. I want to be the guy they forget about by the time I die.
Yeah,
and they make that announcement that you're dead.
Yeah.
I retire in 8 years. I have no reason to stop investing now. I'll retire at 47 years old. I'll be young. But if you look at single family houses, like we talked about this yesterday, this is why do you get into investing? It's the cost of entry is relatively low for your down payment. It's cheaper than buying a separate company and hoping it works out. You have the cash flow, you have the appreciation. You can use it as a tax shelter. You can project your income and use that money to invest down the road with other projects. The time freedom, like me and Vadim, Vadim travels a lot. I do travel a lot too. I think it's the first time in years that I haven't been out of the country within 6 months to a year. The downside in your downtime, your hourly pay versus what you put into it, like you can't beat that. The amount of work that you put into these things, like we're getting paid a lot of money, and we project the kind of money that we're going to make over the next couple of years. Shaun yesterday was saying that he has somebody locked into like a 2-year agreement, and he knows exactly how much he'll make on the property. The average person only has, I think the last number I looked at, I think it was like 2018. The average person in the U.S. has between $3,500 and $7,000 in savings. I don't want to be that guy where my kids got to take care of me, or if something happens, I got to sell, a kidney to live, or I can't afford to, send my kids to school if I ever have them. So for me, like I don't see an end. I think there's a lot of growth in the future. I've got 3 goals, and Jason always laughs at me when I say this. I want to have waterfront properties. I got those. I want to buy a lighthouse, and I want to buy a castle. And everybody laughs at me when I said this, but when I was traveling in Ireland a couple of years ago, you used to be able to buy a castle for $600,000. You can still buy the Czech Republic for $600,000. Right now, there's $1 million 11-bedroom waterfront castle in Wales. $1 million, like that's what a condo goes for in DC. So I think we all have to have goals, and we got to have a path and a plan to get there. If you're done,
build a lighthouse on that same castle. Have everything in one.
I can do that. And if I say, hey, Vadim, Shaun, Ian, and Jason, y'all want to come out and go fishing at my castle? You're definitely going to say yes.
I'm in. We're all going to fly on Alan's private jet, and we'll be there in a few minutes.
Just because I'm smirking doesn't mean I'm laughing at you or disagreeing with you. I understand. I mean, I understand your stuff. And, I think even if we all state, and I know kind of Vadim mentioned, it's like, well, I'm not really sure what my goal is. Like, what your goal is. It's subconscious, even if it's hard to express. Like, you're doing it, and we all are. And there's no right or wrong, right? And, I still believe that a lot of us might be in growth phase, right? And growth phase is okay. I mean, if Nick is still listening to this, we've talked, so I know Nick for a while about, for us personally, it was, in our 20s, we learned, in our 30s, we earned, and then just turned 40 or in my early 40s. So I don't know what happens in 40 years.
Just turned 40.
But I just turned 41. Even though you're a few grades younger than me, for some reason, I'm a year older than you. however that works. But regardless, like, you know, Ian and I talk about this all the time. It's like, hey, we got young kids. Like, what else are we gonna do? Like, it's time to grind, and it's not like, hey, we're, you know, taking attention away from our kids to do just to work. Like, I don't believe any of us are doing that. But I believe if you mold your company the right way, you can do that. You can do whatever you want.
And we all have momentum, right? Like that's been a hot topic around, you know, Shock brought it up yesterday. We brought it up I think the day before. We all have the right momentum, and, you know, you start getting into it, it works. And something that, like, me and Vadim were talking about at that mastermind that also came out is that everyone wants that hard target to hit. But, like, when you hit it, you surpass it, but you've already built yourself the next target, and you're like, wait a second, that was good enough, but now, like, I'm trying to get, you know, like, it's like, I think Tony Robbins talks about it. We don't take enough time to stop and celebrate what we've done. I think if we all look back at our portfolios, like, holy crap, dude, in like a short period of time, because me and Jay talk about is Jay's a few years ahead of me. I'm like, yo, dude, bro, but like, look at you. And he's like, yeah, but in a few years, you're going to be here and I'm going to be here. We're all going to keep moving together. You know, I guess the biggest thing out of that is don't get discouraged, man. Start today, start small, and just keep working up the chain, and we'll all get where we want to go.
It's like that post on Facebook that you posted the other day, like it was 2017. I was like, yeah, man, 2 years ago it's flying by. And I was like, God, 2017 was 4 years ago. Like, we've grown so much in the last 4 years, all of us.
And I know everyone's like, time's not on your side. Well, time is on your side a little bit as well. Like, if you're all here, like the snowball grows and it grows and it grows. And you look back and, you know, one of the biggest things that we learned from working with our business coach was just creating, you know, these goals in the future, and then just striving for them, right? It's not big steps every day, which baby steps every day. And, you know, we hit our, I think it was our 10-year goal that we hit in like 3 years. And we're like, damn, imagine that. Or like, think where you were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's like, holy crap, that happened. So it doesn't matter. I mean, we're all relatively young, but it doesn't matter how old you are. It's the same thing. You know, it works. So, and also, you and I have chatted about this. One big thing related, just because, you know, obviously we're still young and still want to grind. I do believe that most investors should keep up the momentum and grind, even if they're very self-sufficient right now, because we're kind of at the top of the market, and we have been, and who knows what's going to happen. Last thing you want to do is stop completely, right? And then all of a sudden the market starts going backwards, and you're like, oh shit, you know, maybe I'm not as financially free as I thought. So, like, I know personally, like, now's the time that I want to just kind of step all in, spend more time on marketing, analyze whatever I can, just keep moving, try to like have momentum going through this next cycle. So if something does happen in the cycle, it's like, okay, maybe this part of my portfolio, you know, is in the shitter, but this part of my portfolio is great. So, and I'm guessing that's, you know, a lot of people probably think like that. It's just keep, you know, I don't remember who said that the other day, Ian, maybe it was Shane or Mike related to momentum, but it's like, hey, you know, whenever I'm out there grinding, looking for deals, I get these deals out of nowhere. You know, all of a sudden I'm not out there grinding, doing my regular activities, and like I don't have any deals to close.
And I would ask Magner, right? Because you've gone from like being full-time back to W-2, back to full-time. Did you see much of a difference, like when you like slowed it down, or you went back to W-2, took your eye off the prize? Like, what did that look like for you? Did you feel like you always had that momentum?
That's a really good question, man. I mean, no, I don't think the simple answer is probably no. I don't think I always had the momentum. I think that having the W-2 some days incentivize that momentum, right? And encourage that momentum, because I want to get the hell away from the W-2. But other days, and then on the flip side of that, you know, the W-2 was a distraction from the business growth. And so I saw my momentum slow, right? I saw my acquisition start to stale. I would take on a deal here or there, do a flip, always have maybe something going on, but I wasn't really chasing, like, in hot pursuit of the goals like I am right now, and like I've always been when I'm full time. But the momentum thing is legit, and I'll tell you, social media helps and hurts with that, right? I mean, we're all looking at everything that people are putting on social. Everybody's putting the greatest shit in the world out there. Nothing bad's going on in their world, and you're starting to feel shitty about yourself. Like, man, my goals aren't good enough. I'm not there yet. So you're kicking yourself. But dude, I just try to compare myself to myself, and it's hard to do, man. It really is. It really is. There's so many damn distractions out there. But yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, man, definitely hear you. Nick's dropping bombs left and right here, dude. I feel like we got to answer this one.
Let's go through Glenn's question. Let's go through Glenn's.
Oh,
question.
we did promise Glenn. We did promise
real
Glenn.
quick, and then we'll end with Nick's question. So I don't know if you saw this or not, Shaun, but
I did see this. Yep.
He wants to ask about your formula. So if you answer that question, then we'll get to Nick's, and then we'll call it quits.
All right. Question. Every time I've seen him around, he's been with ladies. His girlfriends are, even my friends' girlfriends are attractive. Is that what he said? So I locked that girlfriend down, buddy.
About to have a kid. We were just talking
Pete just mentioned that.
Yeah, Pete, you are correct, my man. I did. I locked it down a while back. Smartest goddamn investment I've ever made.
Work smarter, not harder.
Right.
All right. This is a good question, Nick. All right, let's end with this question. And again, however you're watching this this podcast, this video, it's streaming on a few different Facebook pages and Facebook groups and some LinkedIns and some YouTubes. So the replay is here. All you have to do is when this is over, just watch it again. We're going to continue to check back as people comment, because this is going to be evergreen. So feel free to ask other questions and we'll hop in and answer them. But let's go through this question and then we'll call it a night. Go ahead, Ian.
So what do you guys see for the number of doors versus your monthly profit cash flow versus profit, wealth, and equity? How do you guys prioritize? Like, out of those three metrics, like, what's the first thing that you're like, this checks this box, I want to go to the next level of underwriting? I think that's what Nick's getting at.
I mean, I can speak for it right away. For me, priority number one is monthly profit cash flow, then portfolio, wealth, and equity before the number of doors. The reason I said the number of doors earlier, I used a very specific numbers because my cash flow per door number is very specific. So I know what my cash flow per month goal is. And so for that reason, his three metrics, I go monthly profit, portfolio, wealth, and equity, and the number of doors.
Right. And Vadim, does it matter? Does number of doors take priority when you're looking at, let's say, like a multifamily property? Does that change your metric at all, or is it still about monthly profit cash flow?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I would even put number of doors into my equation. I mean, or if I did, it would be pretty far down in the list. But what I would add into there is the management headache. Like, unless you've got somebody managing it for you, that's going to be either the first or second thing I look at with monthly cash profit, and then just the amount of time it's going to take me to manage that property. Because you can buy cheap properties that cash flow tons of money all day long, but it's going to be a headache, dealing with the tenants and the maintenance over there and all that kind of stuff. So it's just not the kind of thing that I look for.
How about you, Foster?
I think the number of doors is just a dick measuring contest. I think that doesn't make a difference. It's all about cash flow and equity growth. You can go for doors if you want to talk about it. Like if you're making $100 a door, $50 a door, like what's your actual profit at the end of the year with turnover and renovations and everything like that? One thing we haven't talked about that much is networking. If you don't mind spending a couple more minutes about it, like I think all three of us talked about this yesterday and how important it is in our future endeavors. Would you guys mind talking about that a little bit?
Go ahead. You got the mic.
All right. So we talked about this yesterday and how important it is. So I think all of us have friends in pretty much every group that's presented so far. And each one of us have something that we can give to the next person or take away. And some of us are much more advanced than others. Like obviously Jimmy earlier is much more advanced than all of us for, building and developing, neighborhoods. RJ Breeden was talking earlier, I think it was Monday, I think you guys had him on. Like he's telling how important it is to have these relationships. And relationships are based upon memories you have with the person. So you got to have an actual connection. Like you can't be the guy, like Shaun was saying yesterday, you can't be the guy who just goes and hands out a business card, to everybody in the building and expects you to call them. Like you want to have an actual conversation or a connection with the person. So make an effort to kind of get to know the person and be an asset and return it. So I made a little mastermind group for the guys who were part of this, just so if you have something that, something you're stuck on, is two heads are better than one. That's the concept. I learned stuff from yesterday. We spent 2 hours on the phone yesterday. I learned stuff from both of the guys on this podcast with me. I've learned a ton from Jason, a ton from Ian, and I can call them and say, hey, X, Y, and Z, and I'll try to return the favor as much as possible. Like I try to get a photographer to Ian's new acquisition in Baltimore just to help him out. No, I don't want anything from him, but that's what builds your relationships. So when you need something, you have somebody there who can kind of get your back and tell you for screwing up and, make an adjustment here or, try this instead. And I think that the networks and relationships we have in this community, because the community is so small. I think Matt Fullerton told me it was an incestuous pool of investors because we all know each other. And if we don't, then we'll probably cross paths soon. So you want to make a good name for yourself and surround yourself with good people who want to see you grow. Rising tides raises all ships.
Yeah, man. I think me and you, obviously coming from the fire department, we view that brotherhood or that connection a little bit different than everyone else. And Vadim was putting in on this mastermind when I just debated about quitting my W-2 job, is like that identity. And the biggest thing I would miss is that relationship. But the relationships out here in real estate are just as important, right? Like our lives might not be on the line, but I know like just calling and saying, hey, the other week I saved, my God, probably $300 of property across 50 properties. Like what was that one phone call worth just for him to be like, this guy helped me out. Now he's about to help you out. Right. Like that was massive. Just staying in touch with people that I know, like, and enjoy to hang out with. So I think we've said it all, man. I mean, you guys covered a lot of ground. I appreciate you staying on longer than the 45 minutes we had budgeted. Jason is buzzing me over here on the other side. Real quick, where's the best place we can find you guys on the internet? Let's Magner, where can we find you?
I'm easy, man. You can just find me Shaun Magner on Instagram and Facebook. I don't. You're not going to find me doing any TikTok dances like Vadim.
Well, Vadim, go on.
No, I'm not dancing anywhere. I don't know what you're talking about. At least nothing that I want to share with this group. But yeah, find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram too. Shoot me an email. It's just my last name first name @gmail.com. I'm easy to get a hold of. So yeah.
And Foster, where do we find you?
On Facebook, I'm either Hometown Heroes, REI. I run the Prince George's County Investment Group. I think it's Prince George's County Real Estate Investment. We just got it off the ground, trying to grow it a little bit. I'm trying to compete with Terry, but I'm way behind. You can send me a friend request on my personal name. Just send me a message. Let me know who you are, so I can block you from my really bad dad jokes I post every day.
All right, guys. Certainly appreciate you taking the time. Everybody watching this, appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, this already is live on Facebook, not Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you want to replay, just watch the link that you see it at now, and you'll be able to replay. Feel free to keep going with comments. And thanks again, guys. Certainly appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.